We need to get subscribed and get this unity stronger and beat YouTube at their own game. Okay, that's what this is about. Like I say, go to the remix button, hit the remix button. That way you'll have this video and keep up with this. Otherwise, you know, YouTube's just going to control us, guys, and it's really bad.
Okay, guys, I'm going to attempt to do this in one hit. So excuse any slight hiccups or whatever. Right, we're on nuclear news. Now, I've been posting on here. I've had a little break from YouTube, as you can tell. And there's some information's come up. I was just going to run through it quickly, just a couple of main parts. The first part is to do with the European petition to challenge the ICRP, which is the radiation dose sort of estimate group, who say that it's okay for children to have 100 millisieverts per year in Japan. So anyway, Christopher Busby's fronting this, and he's basically got the first tranche of petitions through. People have sent in the petitions to Brussels that is in his ICNJ website. So I've been posting the videos and giving updates on what's been happening. The latest one you're looking at the moment, his latest video explaining what's happening with it. And of course I've reposted this, and I also reposted the petition as well, if I can show you that. The petition is, as you scroll down, so that first video is his latest video. It's talking 2013, this year, and last year was when we were doing this petition and getting that out. There's some description there of people who are behind this petition, like the Alternative Health Organization, and there's just a comment there and a little extract from their website. There's a link to their website, so you can find out who those guys are. They're European scientists and professionals that think that the World Health Organization, the formal one, is not doing its job and is unable to do its job because the IAEA and the people behind them are actually stopping any meaningful research or inquiry into radiological issues. Okay, so we've got some names there of people who are involved. I think you can see those. Yes, you should be able to. I'm going to leave a link for all this anyway. I also put Professor Yablokov's video just there for some explanation. Some other bits and bobs there I've put just to boost the issue that this does need challenging. We need to have a conversation about this in court. And obviously that's what all these professionals do, headed by Professor Busby. Right, we'll get to this video here, and this has been posted up a few times on Nuclear News, and it's been posted up all over the web. The video itself, people who are trying to post this up, like myself and Miss Milky One and Miss Milky the Clan One and various other people, were having great problems uploading this video when it first came out, and when you go out you'll find that some of us have got 2 or 3 copies of this video because the first video nobody could get to it, but anyway we got it out there, and 500 people basically sent in these petitions, so that was a good effort, not a bad effort, considering there was a difficulty, shall we say, in marketing this video and the message that it was bringing. So we've got an address there. That's where you send your you know, if you're European, you've got a European passport, you need to do this. All right, but anyway, that's what I was saying. But of course I've just said, you know, go and do it. So let's go to the website. We can click on the ICNJ website here. I think you can just see that in the top left hand corner. So that's nuclearjustice.org. And if we were to click on that, what would we get? Off www.nuclear. Oh, I'll just let you see the URL there. Sorry, I don't think you see that. But just up here, www.nuclearjustice.org. And then when we get there, we get welcome to your website, it says. This is a default index page of your website. I'll just click that off so you may be able to see that easier. Move it over that way a bit. This file may be deleted or overwritten without any difficulty. This is a product. This is produced by the file index.html in the web directory. For questions or problems, please contact support. So they very kindly left a message saying that the file can be easily deleted or overwritten without any difficulty whatsoever. And this is powered by ISP-config. Let's just find out who they are, because I think we should consider banning them from who are they? Just a quick look. I'm going to keep this short. No information about them. Just no home, no information. What's down here? Imprint. No, thank you. All right. Well, anyway, so that's a problem. So you can't actually send your thing out, can you? And anyway, if you're wondering why BuzzBee would be under attack now, this is ridiculous, isn't it? Total paranoia. Well, I'm just going to bring you to a couple of other little situations that have occurred. So if I just adjust this, there we go. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Right, to start off with, there was some stories about the Sellafield being evacuated and gas masks having to be worn, and then the BBC covered it and said, oh, it was the snow. And this whole story here, I'm going to leave a link to it, and you just got to read it. It's quite involved, but bottom line is they were lying. Eurodept did a switch off while I was trying to get the information. Managed to get the information anyway because of the little tricks that I've been using on these other YouTube videos, the little back doors that they leave open for us. And so I was looking at things, and you know, as I was looking around the United Kingdom, we were getting some little bits, and then there was a switch off about 12 o'clock on March the 22nd. And in Ireland there wasn't a switch off, but we can see some strange things going on. And I'm just going to leave these links here. I'm just going to let you have a quick look at them. This is all over Ireland, has been hit by radon. Now we know that these little rises are actually representative of big quick peaks and then averaging out software. So we get a kind of a straight line, especially in the UK. And what's probably been happening is we'd maybe be getting up to 0.2 something, maybe a bit more. In fact, well, I'm going to let you know, sort of decide what you think that might be. But it was quite interesting, and that happened, and I just reported on it, and I said, well, no, it isn't the snow, it's a radon issue. And it went out to the Atlantic, spread all over Ireland. It's hit Spain, where they turned off the radiation monitoring on Eurodept. Yeah, total nightmare. Loads of links there. I've left some other links there that show Portugal being switched off, and yeah, you just got to have a look at it. Malin Cork got hit very heavily because that got hit from as the contamination went out to sea, it came back, and then it hit the south coast of Ireland. And then went across Ireland, and I think that's what might have happened. I also think there was some coastal stuff that was triggering off the coastal stuff as well. But look at those yourself, because you know, if you guys that have been doing this for a while, you'd have an idea of how to click around Eurodept. And right, okay, I'm just going to quickly go on to the next one. And this was the same story. A couple of days later, there's a radiation alert at a dead, the dead tycoon. They called in the radiological, and they eventually said, oh, it's just normal atmospheric. They said normal atmospheric, and of course, going back to that, it wasn't too normal, was it? It wasn't too normal. It was radon from Sellafield, and the workers had to evacuate, and young children in the local area. Well, I'll come to that soon. Anyway, so I put a UFO there because that was just taking the mick, basically. Just add to the non-story. Okay, so we've basically had a look at that, and this is another non-story that occurred, and we've got Telegraph. It's covered all the major media. great story. They just turned it into a political fiasco, which didn't involve telling the Irish that they've polluted the whole of the sort of kind of Western Europe with radiation. But it's radon from the vitrification processes, I think, in Sellafield. I know it's Sellafield. I think it's vitrification. And that they're much more smellier than, say, nuclear power stations. Nuclear power stations are quite clean. But anyway, going back to 20th of October 2012, article in the Daily Mail referred to birds dropping out of the sky and a UFO. And I don't know if you can see it here, but just around here there's a rather large circular, and it's not, you can't even see through it. So it's like a flat circle of gases. And of course we know this is ionizing radiation. It's radon. It's got God knows what else in it, but it's certainly got radon in it. And it's very dense because we can't see through it. So it's dense. It's a very thick, tight smoke. And we know that this is going to spread as it travels. And, you know, I'll be reading that in oh, I did, actually. I think I left a link to it. Yeah, I got up to 0.25 microsieverts per hour on Friday, and then on the Saturday it started reducing 0.15 from that. But I would imagine there was more of those about, don't you? That was just a what do they call it? It was a stack fire or backdraft. You know, basically there was a fire possibly in the stack, blew up this thing, you know, made a smoke ring for want of a better word, and they got a nice picture of it. But maybe they thought it was a UFO, but well, yeah, it's yeah, that's what censorship does, by the way. You know, it's a UFO, major national daily. It's not you know, it's not cancerous radiation or anything. Don't worry about it. But anyway, I've talked about what radon does to our environment when it's man-made like this, and that it turns to lead, and that it poisons our birds, as in last year's report about bird deaths and the high levels of lead, and where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from, well, there's a picture of it. You've got a picture of where the lead's coming from. That is lead. Well, it will be. It's amazing, isn't it? It's like magic. It turns into a gas, and then it turns into a particulate, and eventually it becomes, actually, do you know what? Eventually, the lead that's in the birds will eventually become polonium. There you are, polonium-210. Polonium-210 is exactly what the lead-210 that's in the birds will become. And that'll be in all our environment. So, you know, that's food for thought. No terrible health effect. So, right, so I did all that, and then I'll just go into this one. So there we are, we're talking about huge releases from places like The Hague and Sellafield, and they're just massive, and they're covering it up, and because they're covering it up, well, we'll go on to that, but at the moment, you know, we're getting reports from nuclear sites that there's birth defects, stillbirths, spontaneous abortions, all that type of stuff. And that was from India, so I'm going to leave a link to that, and you can read that and then think, well, if they're talking about nuclear power stations that are relatively clean, what about nuclear fuel processing and waste disposal sites that are producing huge amounts, you know, that they don't want to even measure? They'll turn the monitors off while these releases are going on, turn them back on afterwards, and then claim they've only had so many million becquerels release a year when they've had a lot more than that. So anyway, but this is one article there from India claiming that, and of course a lot of you are saying, well, that's a load of rubbish. India, we don't believe. Well, they're no good at that, and they, you know, but they're good enough to run nuclear power plants and have bombs. Study shows radiation can be bad for a woman's heart. I just thought I'd pop that one in there just to, you know, and you can have a look at that yourself. We've got where we got, yeah, it's just a good article there, and you can have a look at that. And then I think there is this, which I just thought I'd pop in just for the crack. Most Americans are willing to use nuclear weapons, new report. I'll just leave that down the bottom there. it's just food for thought. You know, when we're considering that if they're prepared to use nuclear weapons, then they're not really worried about a bit of radon. You know what I'm saying? So that's that one. Right, okay. And then the very last one should be. I can never find it. Oh, good grief. Right. There we are. Irish bid to close Sellafield. So basically a couple of days after well, actually, to be honest, the Sellafield release has been going on for weeks, at least a week or so that I'm aware of. All right, I haven't been looking too closely at it. I just picked up on it when this report came out. So this particular article, which I'm going to leave for you, you can read it yourself. You can go to the links. You can check out the documentation that's with it, and you know, at the bottom here we've got some other links as well. And in fact, there's a link here on Any News, which I've put a load of links and other people haven't. It's just interesting. It's just making fun of the mainstream media and how they really cannot, or they are unable, they are not allowed to cover a story in this way. But one of them did, and so therefore we've got the Irish bid to close Sellafield 2 days after the report of bad weather at Sellafield, shall we say. But we know what that was. And you know, obviously the Irish, they're looking at how much cesium it's putting out. So there's a map there showing you how the cesium is deposited around. Into the report, I pulled up an extract, but it's giving you, you know, so I think this is tritium depositions in the Irish Sea. Anybody want some Dublin prawns? Crack on. They were nice. I just noticed that that isn't live, but you can cut and paste it and move on. But that's the actual, you know, we've got the links there to the actual Irish reports done by scientists. You can have a look at that. So yeah, that's for you to read. There's some good articles there, and you know, at the end of the day, this was covered by the Daily Mail. Not very wide coverage otherwise, so well done, Daily Mail, because it's quite important. See, what's happened is, I'll just finish off with this thought for you. Chris Busby, who got hacked, brought up the fact that Ireland has an agreement with England, and England has to tell them how much release they are doing, and if they break the terms of that agreement, then the Irish can say, well, we don't agree with Sellafield, you have to close it down, and they go to the European law, and then Sellafield has to close down, and that is some of the worst news for the British nuclear crowd that we've ever come across. Major layoffs in the nuclear industry coming up, lots of bad news. I just hope they keep some good lads for decommissioning, you know, but 70% of the workers are going to be, you know, the sort of more highly trained, highly educated workers will be leaving, and we're going to have a lot of untrained young people who started engineering at the age of some silly age like 22, 25, and they're the people that are going to be dealing with these elderly reactors, which don't seem to retire as quick as the workers that work in them. Anyway, God bless all. Links below, and I'll talk to you soon.
I'm talking to you today on Hiroshima Day about the question of human rights, science and the law. And in this I'm representing a new committee called the International Committee on Nuclear Justice, which was launched in Vilnius in December 2011 and later was added to by people from Geneva in May 2012. The purpose of this committee is to carry out and research legal avenues of preventing the continuing contamination of the environment by the nuclear industry and by weapons usage. And the first thing that we are launching today is a petition to the European Parliament, which is based on human rights legislation, and it's based on the fact that there is an enormous amount of information available now, peer-reviewed literature, scientific papers, which show that the contamination of the environment is causing the deaths of millions of people. And up till now, nobody has really thought about ways in which they can legally stop the nuclear industry and the military from continuing to contaminate the environment, because whenever they try to do this, activists and NGOs, and there are enough of those, and I'm talking to you all now, they get blocked by the argument that the risk model, the International Commission on Radiological Protection risk model, shows that these contaminations are safe and cannot possibly harm anybody. But there is now enough evidence to show that this is wrong. Scientific evidence in the peer-reviewed literature. And in the document that I should be sending you, and which you can find on the website of the International Committee on Nuclear Justice, which is nuclearjustice.org, you will find this document, which is a template for a petition to the European Parliament, which I will now explain. Now, this actually only applies to people who live in the states of the European Union. And later on we will be dealing with people who live in other countries like Japan and the United States, countries which have signed up to various international conventions on human rights. And we will be using human rights legislation. But for now, the first launch of this petition, this idea, will be through a petition to the Petitions Committee of the European Parliament, which I will now explain. You will find this petition on the website, as I said, of the International Commission on Nuclear Justice. And what I want you to do is to download the petition and to sign it. And if you like to add to it anything that you have that concerns you about the particular situation in your country, about nuclear industry, about contamination, possibly about child health, whatever it happens to be that is your concern, add that to the petition, sign it, and send it by registered post to the Petitions Committee of the European Parliament at Rue Viertz in Brussels, and we'll put the address up for you to do this. Now, I talked about this in Geneva, and I said there, when people were concerned about what could be done, that there was something that could be done. And if you all do this, it will cause a tsunami of petitions to appear. In August, and this is important because in August the European Parliament is in recess, and these petitions will have to just build up in the Petitions Committee, and they will have to deal with them. And the reason that they will have to deal with them is this: that the petition is based on the present European Parliament, the present European law, which is a directive based on the Euratom Treaty. It's the Euratom 96/29 directive, which is called the Basic Safety Standards Directive. Inside this directive is a clause, and I'll show you the clause here. It's written down under Chapter 5, Justification and Regulatory Control of Practices, and we're talking about practices involving the release of radioactivity to the environment. Article 20 says, existing types of practices shall be reviewed as to their justification whenever new and important evidence about their efficacy or potential consequences is acquired. Now, this is a terribly important clause, because what it means is that all of the practices, that's every situation where radioactivity is released to the environment, has to be reconsidered on the basis of evidence that shows that the risk model that is currently being used to address this practice, and this is the risk model of the ICRP, if it shows that this risk model is wrong or raises questions about its safety, then these practices have to be re-justified. And this petition will force that to come about, because it is law. So it's not just a question of complaining to your MP, it's not just a question of writing something saying, oh, I don't like this, on some vast tsunami of postcards that go to somebody who just puts them in the bin. This is a legal process which has to be dealt with, and they will have to deal with it. But only if you send the petition along. Now let me explain what this is about. Under international human rights agreements and legislations, there are various clauses which say that each person is entitled to live in an environment which is safe for their health. This has been universally signed up to by every single country in the world, and certainly by the European Union. Now, the problem is that people who live in environments that are contaminated with radioactivity are not living in an environment which is safe for their health. And so this is a contravention of an international human rights legislation agreement. And the only reason that they can say this is the European Union, the Commission, in this particular case, that these things are harmless, is they can say that the International Commission on Radiological Protection says that the doses that are associated with these exposures are too low to cause any effects. But in this petition, at the end of it, we have gathered together 55 peer-reviewed references, each of which, on its own, shows that the ICRP risk model is false. And not false by a very small amount, but false by a very, very large amount, so that thousands of people are dying, no, millions of people are dying as a result of these exposures. People living along the shores of the Baltic Sea, people who are living along the shores of the Irish Sea, children who are living near nuclear installations. There's a long, long list. People in Iraq that have been exposed to radioactivity from uranium. I'll just go through a few of these because I don't want to hold you too long. The most important thing is this take-home message. You must get this petition, download it, and sign it and send it to the European Parliament at the address that we'll give you. So I'll just go briefly through some of the evidences, and they're all backed up by peer-reviewed studies. Firstly, there's childhood cancer near nuclear installations. An enormous number of studies have shown that if you live within 5 kilometres of a nuclear power station, your children have double the risk of getting childhood leukemia. There's no question about this. The radiation causes the childhood leukemia, and yet the ICRP risk model says that this is impossible. And the error in the model needed to account for these childhood leukemias, and the latest study is an enormous study from the German government. The error necessary to explain this is upwards of 1,000 times. So in other words, the risk model of the ICRP is wrong by at least 1,000 times in terms of, with regard to this particular situation. And now also here's another thing. There was an increase in infant leukemia after Chernobyl in those children who were in the womb at the time of the Chernobyl radiation. So it could only be the Chernobyl radiation that caused the increase in infant leukemia. And these studies were done in a number of different epidemiological settings, in Greece, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, in the United States, in Belarus. Wherever anybody looked, they found increases in infant leukemia in these children who were in the womb. And that shows an error in the ICRP risk model of about 400 times. Then there was a study in northern Sweden by Martin Tondell that showed that people who lived in areas contaminated with cesium from Chernobyl had cancer rates proportional to the amount of contamination. This was published in the peer-reviewed literature. It's there for anyone to see. It shows that the error in the ICRP risk model is about 600 times. A very important study now is one by Haugen Scherb in Germany, and he looked at, and his colleague Christina Voigt looked at the sex ratio, that's the ratio of boys to girls who were born after accidents like Chernobyl, after the weapons testing fallout, and living near nuclear power stations, and he found that there was a perturbation in the sex ratio, quite clear, highly statistically significant, published in the peer-reviewed literature. It means that millions of children have died. Millions of children have died as a result of these exposures to ionizing radiation. That shows a problem with the ICRP risk model of hundreds of times, thousands of times. In fact, the ICRP risk model doesn't even consider the effects on infant mortality and children. So, we have cancer and leukemia, lymphoma and heart disease in uranium workers. Very recent study by Irina Guseva-Kano, who works for the French nuclear industry, incidentally. So not somebody from the, if you like, the lefty side, somebody who works for the industry. Very clever epidemiologist, has studied uranium workers and shown that they have a huge increase in heart disease effects and in cancer, in leukemia and lymphoma. This shows that the ICRP risk model is out by a factor of 2,400 times in the peer-reviewed literature. Various other things. I won't go through all of them. They're all on the end of this report. I'll just finally mention, of course, the work done by my colleague Alexei Yablokov, who collected together all of the information that came out from the ex-Soviet Union territories contaminated by Chernobyl, and showed that there were enormous health disaster effects in Belarus, in Ukraine, in those parts of the Russian Federation that were exposed to the Chernobyl effects, in Bryansk. There is just so much evidence, we have an embarrassment of riches, but the problem is that nobody will look at it. Well, we're going to force them to look at it by sending this petition to the European Parliament Petitions Committee. with all of its 55 references, and you are going to help us to do this by contacting us at info@nuclearjustice.org, or else just going to the website and downloading the information. And I hope that you will contact us and tell us that you're doing it, so we'll have a sort of a list of the number of people who have helped us in this way. For the first time, we can probably make a difference. We can probably really stop the nuclear industry from continuing to pollute. And I don't blame these people. I have to say that we're not talking about bad guys and good guys here, although actually there are some bad guys. I think in general we're talking about ignorance and people who are tied into a sort of culture of physics and a culture of the past, a culture of a risk model that was set up in 1952 and hasn't really been altered since then. And so we have to forgive these people for what they've done, but we cannot continue to allow them to do it. Thank you.